There we go. Welcome, everyone. This is Cindy at an open door. It's Monday, December 23rd, and this is where the rubber meets the road. We typically grab a concept or a teaching or a lesson from A Course in Miracles. Don't ask me how it's chosen. It just gets chosen. And then we look at how that can be used um, in our interaction with the world. And I was, we were having a conversation. Um, the energy is moving so intensely right now here that it's affecting my speech. So that if you see me pausing, it's not because I'm tired or something. It's literally because I'm being informed by a very, very deep space and the energy is flowing. We were having a conversation before we hit the record button. We were talking about I was just sinking into how at the end of last week's meeting, I immediately opened to essentially ask, what are we doing next week? And it's similar to when I lead a gathering at Awakening Together, which I am doing. I'm leading the first gathering of 2025 on January 5th, and Ron is going to read for me. And I sit and wait for the topic to arise, and it's really, um, it comes from something other than my conscious mind. So at the end of last Monday's meeting, or maybe it was at the end of Training Wheels, I don't even know anymore. All these meetings are becoming one for me, and they're all informing what's happening here. The thought arose, Lord, here I am. And what that really means. The Course, clearly states that there is only one power, there's only one thing going on here, and we can keep realigning to that. And Amy brought us to a footnote with a suggestion that said, Lord, here I am. And I thought we were going to talk about that. But then I went to where that footnote came from, and I started reading chapter 3, the section called the fear of teaching, which is where it comes from, the fear of teaching and what that means. Yeah. And I hit upon something um, called the authority problem. And why are we afraid? What is teaching? And teaching is literally just saying yes to being a miracle worker. And what is a miracle worker? It's this sense of allowing a change in perception. Well, what does that mean? And a couple of us started just a little chat when I said we're doing the authority problem. And as soon as I sent that text out to a couple of us in this room, the response came was great. It's always been a confusion here. And that created an interesting experience here because I don't want Cindy to teach on any of this, right? It's it's what does it really mean? Who is the who is the author of the Cindy life story? A, and B, if I want a higher version of I'm being careful with the words. If we accept the basic teaching that there are only really two states, love or fear, there's two thought systems, love or fear, and truth comes from the state of love, and fear is the absence of love. It's basic teaching, right? Um, at any given moment, my experience of life can be one of just resting in love and letting love flow, or there can be all these variations of fear. And when I notice the fear, how can I step back and say, now, wait a minute. I understand that fear authored my experience up until this point in various ways, but love has pulled me to this moment now. And how do I allow love to inform what's going on instead of fear? That's where the question came to. Like, can I allow love to be the author of Cindy's life story? It's kind of cool. And I have a story to tell about what happened when I sat with that, and I'm going to tell it. But first, I always have a song. And Spirit only wanted one song for today's conversation. I couldn't get Spirit to change its mind. I'm not even apologizing because I love this song. It's another brick in the wall, right? Um, but I guess the guidance was is to talk about it first, just in the sense of we've been alive for 40 years, 50 years, six. I have no idea how old Kendall is. I know how old most of the rest of us are. We've told it 70 years, 80 years. I think there's someone in the room that's closer to 90, which is kind of cool. So we've had we've had authorship, and for much of those years, perhaps it was a fear-based need to protect myself, need to prove myself, need to justify myself, need to help those I care about and defend them against the mean world out there, a fear-based author. And now there's a choice to say, nah, I want something else. So this song really talks in some ways about that, right? The system that has taught us, a fear-based system, creates a block between maybe something else that is there. So I'm going to hit pause. Barbie's not in the room, so somebody else is going to remind me to hit play again. Rana, yeah, maybe if I forget. But let's take a few minutes and hang with Pink Floyd, and then I'll tell you what happened. There we go.
I never knew several of the actual words to that song, so that was quite the experience.
When
Thank
you
you.
allow the world to be your teacher, what it does is it literally adds the bricks to the wall that keep you from being able to rest as your divine self. So here's the way I want to share. I got chills. So here's the way I will to share before we open up for conversation. Where all this left me as I'm sitting and looking at authorship, I sunk into the basic, what's for me now, the basic teaching, not how I go out into the world, but the basic teaching is that ultimately there's fear and love. And the world out there, I could use it in only two ways. Either I could use the world out there to inform me of who I am, like it's a separate being and it's acting on me, and I have to defend and justify and prove and try to make the world different so that I could be okay. Or I could slow things down and accept the basic teaching that's all over the course and all over so much of the other teachings, that all that the world is doing is reflecting back to me, Joel Goldsmith says, my current level of consciousness. And if I look at the world as a mirror of what's in here, then when I'm noticing, I could get real quiet and say, now, wait a minute. The world is showing me a whole bunch of shadows in here that I don't feel like living with anymore. And the other part of this, my understanding is that there's no exceptions. There's literally no exceptions. The world reflects my current level of consciousness or our collective level of consciousness, which is kind of cool. But that's a different story because right now I'm holding this system, Cindy, responsible. I've also recognized in my storyline that when I take the little bits and pieces of what's going on and put them to the test, I become a miracle worker in the terminology of the course, right? There's a change in perception and the world changes. And here's the chills again, that all the hair on my arm standing up. So here's what I'm sitting in this story. I'm deciding to put it to the test. And the storyline that came up, yes, it's about my other daughter, not Emma, and not a car this time. Sarah, my oldest daughter lives in Kentucky, and there's a lot of history about our relationship and her dad and all sorts of things. Um, the last, and it's still not adversarial. Most of the adversarial aspect of my relationship with my older daughter, I'm realizing, is from the past history and not in her reality. The last three times I had called her, she didn't answer. And she would answer, I'd get a short text response if I had a specific question. But otherwise, here we're leading up to Christmas, and three times in about 2.5 weeks, I'd call her, send a message, hi, honey, I love you. I miss you, just kind of want to chat. And at some point, I get a, I love and miss you too.
I
And
just forwarded you an email.
and that would be the only response, right? By the last couple of days, I'm noticing every time I think about Sarah, I feel an upset, contraction, a pain inside, and the feeling like I don't have a relationship with my daughter. And then there's these stories about she must really be suffering. She's doing a Christmas away from Buffalo with her dad having passed. Like all these different things are showing up, making things up. I wish I had a better relationship with my daughter, whatever. It didn't matter. I don't let stories go too far, but energetically, there was a feeling of upset here. So I saw the tendency to believe that the upset was I don't have the relationship I want with Sarah, or Sarah needs to start calling her mother more often so that I could be okay. And so, like all those things, it doesn't matter. I didn't put a lot of names to it. Instead, I sat on the couch and said, okay, Spirit, let's do this thing. Let me understand that in that moment, as I sat with this and I allowed myself to feel the loneliness and the pain and the wishing things were different and the seemingly real story out there of not having spoken to her in almost 3 weeks, um, I I continually accepted that the entire storyline on a microscopic level. I said, okay, it's reflecting a belief in here. And I don't even know what the belief is, but I'm willing to accept that this story is a projection. It's a projection. It's not happening to me, it's happening from me. And I just kept sitting with it. And there was this like fighting and this belief that it couldn't change. And I just kept sitting with it and feeling it. And then at some point, my little Zen Buddhist questions that they arose. I didn't plan them, but the thought arose in this space, like I'm accepting that what I am is eternal and Cindy is just limited. So where does this story fit in that belief structure? And I could feel like the pain was becoming more intense but smaller in my space. And then the question arose, where was Sarah before Cindy was even born? If Cindy is just a dream character and what I am is an extension of God, then where is Sarah in this whole thing? And it became more and more available in my just watching this that Sarah was a projection of the desire for the experience or the wanting of the experience of being rejected and all the family. It didn't even matter. It wasn't going into story. It was more of a feeling. And then it was like, and who wants to cling to this idea that she is temporary and that she is the mother of someone who has now rejected her, and I just kept letting that come. That's all I did. Deciding in the context of knowing I was going to be here today, that fear-based kind of storyline and belief that I could be rejected by my daughter and that I am alone, whatever it was no longer the author of my life experience, had no more authority to affect my my life, handing authorship over to love. That's that's where I was, and just sitting with the experience. I don't know how long it lasted. I could tell you within an hour, maybe 15 minutes of coming to a really peaceful space, the phone rang and it was Sarah. She was driving home from work and things are really busy. And we had a conversation from the standpoint that there was never any problem to solve. She was just telling me what was going on and where she was. And the man she's dating has a little one. And we're talking about making salt ornaments with Winter, the 3-year-old, and how it's safe for the animals. And then not only that, because we're talking about becoming a miracle worker, right? So here I am talking to Sarah like there was no problem, because whatever the problem was, it was a projection based on a belief and had nothing to do with reality. So Sarah and I had like a 15-minute conversation, and then Emma called in, and I had both of my children on the line, and we were just hanging like there was no problem in the world. The world changed. And I got to see that no matter how real the story appears, if it's tinged at all with fear, judgment, the need for somebody else to change, the need to defend somebody else's action, the need to prove myself worthy, whatever. There's all these different ways that fear shows up. Then there is an authorship of a contraction held within that story and the opportunity to have that be forgiven or healed or released to love. I don't care what you call it, but that was my experience with atheism. It was extraordinary. Like I felt it, I knew it. So that's what I am putting into this space when we talk about the authority problem and authorship and where I am right now. And with that, I hand it to Andrew. Good to have you here, sir.
Thank you. I loved your story. That's all our lives are, is stories. But as far as authorship goes, there's a little prayer in the course. I don't know what chapter offhand. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience and decide upon the goals I would achieve. And everything that happens to me, I asked for and receive as I have asked. So we are responsible, and we can affect the world and our circumstances, just as you demonstrated with that miracle story that you told. I believe that's truly a miracle. But yeah, in the world, special relationships are our biggest challenge, without a doubt. I know there's a lot of time, maybe a whole chapter dedicated to special relationships. They can be changed into holy relationships, but it's a challenge. That's really all I've got. I loved your story again, and I'm sorry I missed last week.
It's recorded. If you have a spare hour, you can listen to it while you're driving around. And there was a moment in here where I've decided to rename all challenges as gifts. They're just words. But like what happened to me yesterday, I can tell you for some unknown period of time, I felt the pain of it. And it was so valuable to feel into and be still with the experience of the pain of wanting things to be different without really telling the story. And then being informed by all these other questions like, where was this relationship, Cindy, before you were born? If you are eternal, then perhaps it's not what you know, it was these questions of it. They didn't come from the intellectual mind. It was a choosing here to choose what is said in the prayer, and then the willingness to sit still and something else reworked it, which it was just extraordinary to watch it. Like it really felt like my world had changed. Now, Rana's in the house. Noticing a lot of black shirts, by the way.
I did too. I was like, what's going on? Everybody's in dark clothes except for Richard and Sandra. So I don't know what that means. It means nothing. It's just an interesting, curious fact of the morning, isn't it? Hello, everybody. I am responsible for what I see. It doesn't come from nowhere. Well, there's a perception there, and there's cobwebs and beliefs and things that I've believed for a long time, and it's still being presented. This is a seemingly gradual process, it seems, to identify what I'm responsible for and what those hidden energies are and where fear still lurks, And it's such a freedom to know today that once I take that responsibility for what I see, I can make that choice to shift from seeing it as limited Rana and ask for help and feel the expansion in a way and see it as witness, which is really pretty neat to be able to back up from thoughts and feelings and really be aware of the experience in the moment of what's going on with that stuff, whether it's a monkey mind or, some sort of bodily sensation. And I read something over the weekend that was really helpful for me. It's from a book that Regina Dawn Akers has published called Inner Ramana. We've talked about it before. So it's talking about where we choose to be rather than what. And so it says you choose to engage in the belief in thought, or you choose to observe thought without being engaged, or you choose to abide in self completely and leave thought behind, but you do not decide what the thought will be. And so that just shows me the openness of the pause to experience what is coming up. There's no guilt in the responsibility for what I see. Like Cindy just said, it's a gift. As Cindy was sharing, I was talking with someone over the weekend and we were talking about what is this one's business, what is their business, and what is God's business. So if I translate that into the language that we use here today, I have no business, but the mind thinks it has business, and it thinks it, for a long time, I thought it was an attribute to be concerned and worried and play the tape through on my loved one's business. But today I realized that choice to shift into where this is, spirit's business and what can be learned here. I'm still teachable, and to be open and just to continue as much as possible to make that choice and sit with whatever comes up and make that move from what I think I am to what I'm coming to understand and know I am, and then abide there. There's a very overwhelming, in a good way, sense of stillness and peace when I've been taking these moments, short moments many times throughout the day, and just being very aware of what's going on here. And that's the gift that worldly experience is giving me right now. So it's a gift. I'm grateful to be here with you all. I love you.
Thank you, Ron. Love you too. Richard.
Morning, everyone. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you will celebrate or will celebrate on the right day. So, great share, Cindy, with also Andrew and Rona. I'm not sure I understand what the authority problem is, but what I got before the recording started was maybe this, who wrote the script? Is that the authority problem? So interestingly, yesterday I watched a YouTube clip that talked to that exactly. So I'd like to share that with the group. It was with Keith Kavanaugh, and it was 2 years ago. Was his first, I think it was his first ever YouTube clip. So I'm not sure of that, but that's what I think he said. But anyway, the script is written by the ego. And in order to, in order to realize what the script is for, whenever you experience something other than peace or love, you are identifying with the hero of the dream, the separate self. And in order to reacquaint your mind in the right mind, to get back in the right mind, because when you're in the wrong mind, you see yourself as the hero of the dream or the separate self. So you rise above the battleground, basically leave the dream, and you re-identify as the one son of God or child of God, and you seep into the memory of what that means, which is stillness. And when you do that, you're in your right mind. Now, you don't want, being in your right mind, you've now observed the dream. You're looking at the dream, realizing it's not real, and whatever you were experiencing was a projection of the thoughts in your mind that need healing. And these thoughts were derived primarily from the fear of punishment for the sin you think you made when you separated yourself from your source. So when you rest in the stillness, you just observe the dream. And what happens when you're in the right mind is you repurpose what the dream is for. So instead of the dream being a dream of sin and guilt and fear, you now realize whatever you experienced less than love was a healing opportunity for the mind. And you then recognize you don't want to change the dream. The dream is what the dream is, and it's already over. But you want to repurpose the dream, and you can repurpose the dream without changing it by giving it another purpose. And the purpose is to wake up to your true self. To forgive yourself first for believing you claim to be separate, which you now know is not true, that you're one with everything, and then you are going to allow the dream to unfold. And as you accept the dream, then and that means that going forward, you will not experience as much pain and suffering when you identify with the separate self. So I thought that was for me, that was very enlightening. That and I listened to this kind of Keith has a tendency to repeat this over and over again. And I need to hear it over and over again so it sinks into this separate mind self that I normally identify with as the hero of my dreams. Because that's my experience. But I love you all, and I hope that made sense to you.
Yep. Thank you. For the record, I too need to hear these same teachings, the words of the same teachings over and over and over again. They hit me differently. There's no question that while the thinking mind is repeating the same friggin' stories over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So this idea that the truth teachings don't need to be held and repeated is silly, nonsensical even. Hey, Ron.
Hey, thank you, Richard, so much. That was a beautiful teaching right there. And the sentence, resting in stillness allows observation of the dream. That just, it really hits something here for me, and makes sense of like kind of what's going on there. Why is that stillness so attractive and I want to go there more, and why does it seem like in a holy instant perception can change, about anything that seems to be going on in the moment. So I really appreciate that. I want to point to the word authority for a moment. What's coming up for me today is I've been looking at that word authority as like a general, somebody in charge, right? Which is part of this too. But as Cindy was talking about the author, who is the author? There's a question right now. Which author am I sitting with right now? Is it the thinking mind ego, or is it the author, the supreme author? And which one am I giving over authority to run what's going on and believe it? So thank you for the I needed a deeper meaning of authority. It's like authority has an author in it. Thanks.
Hey, Amy.
Good morning, everybody. I sound a little different because I have a very bad cold. And I've been thinking a little bit about, this thing of authorship. Thank you, Rana, for reminding us of that. The author of the story is who? Am I the author of my own story? Yes and no. Cause and effect are one, right? Cause and effect are one. There is no separation between cause and effect. If there was separation between cause and effect, then time would be real, right? But it's all happening now. So being sick in this body, I caught myself this morning saying, I can't wait for this cold to be done, because I know that it will be done, right? I know that this is temporary and I'll move through it. And it feels like having sickness in the body, the last thing that one wants to do is sit and reflect upon it. I don't really want to become more aware of my stuffy nose and my sore throat and my incessant desire to sneeze. And it's a challenge to move beyond that. It's a challenge to go deeper because the body is in such resistance to its own suffering. And there's just no peace in the stillness, or at least it seems that way. So Richard talked about repurposing the dream. And part of my challenge, because I'm so full of ego right now, and believing the body is, well, who's repurposing the dream? Because the ego will take that repurposing challenge and just get right into it. So then it comes to me, well, maybe the purpose, there is no purpose. Maybe the thing to do is just have the experience of the apparent suffering and not really try to think about it or repurpose it or do anything with it at all, but just have the experience of it and just allow it to be what it is. And that's perhaps just the point of it. So I just want to say one more thing, because I love Cindy's story and I love when that happens. It seems like when we finally release the story and we finally are willing to accept whatever seems to be arising, that's when it shifts. It's kind of like what Matt Kahn said and Joy Kahn. Once you say, I'm done with this, I really need to be done with this. That's when you know that spirit or yourself, your higher self, is going to start sending you something else, right? That's what we heard in the video, Matt and Joy Kahn. But what comes to me, and I'd love Cindy to expand on this, is it's a great story, it's a great lesson, but what would have happened if your daughter hadn't called? You know, what would have happened if you had had silence from her for another 3 weeks? You know, what would have happened then? What would your prayer have been then? And I want to just end on one note. And this is A Course in Miracles. And it says, it's about prayer and about how wonderful it is to ask for guidance. Because failure to ask for guidance means I want to be in control. I want to be the author. But when we ask for guidance, it at least signifies a willingness to cooperate, right? So when you at least ask, you're asking for a cooperative thought, even though it may not lack ambivalence. You are therefore entitled to a specific answer, and it goes on. But so it's just about prayer. So when we do ask for prayer, we're at least willing to entertain the thought that we aren't the sole author of our own experience. Thank you all.
So the way I'm going to answer, since you asked specifically before I hand this over to Chuck, and then William put his hand up and down, and I noticed those things. So is this, that story was a great one for me to share because it came at, it was a great teaching point, right? But let's go to the other daughter and her stolen car story that has been going on for the better part of a year. I'm doing the same types of things with them on an ongoing basis, and it's been riding the waves, right? So over and over, and a lot of people have heard different aspects of the story. We're now in a situation where a check has been on, and Emma still has my car, and in my quiet spaces, I get to tell her, take your time and finding a new, like, and I am noticing bumps in the road that keep coming back. There are ongoing opportunities to sit down and dive deeper and ask, and it's like I'm going mining, right? I've learned things about my relationship with my sister, my mother, being out in the world, what I need, what I don't need. I keep coming back to it, and it's changing the world, but I still don't have a car, right? So that's the way, that's what comes up. There's aspects, there's different aspects of the stories, and there's little chapters, and there's the bigger movie of it. Like Cindy's life story is probably 100 different movies from beginning to end, right? A lot of them are running. So how often can I come back? How often can I be present with what is most alive in the moment? So that's the way I answer it.
And what comes to me is, for me, the truest prayer is, help me to see the truth in this, and whatever that is, help me to, just be with me while I experience this, even though it's just myself who's asking myself to be with myself. It still feels so comforting and so reassuring and so true to just say, whatever is going to come up, I don't know what that is, but let me not feel alone in this. Let me know that all that is right here with me, right here.
Thank you. And it's a deeper conversation, and who knows, it may be an informed next week, but I can tell you that I'm asking for help from the one who knows more and more and more often. It's a big part of it. Was what I was when I sat with the pain of not speaking to Sarah for 3 weeks. I was asking for help from knows, the one that knows the truth, right? Or something that's more true than the pain I was experiencing. So I'm right in here with you, and I'm loving the exchange. Hey, Chuck.
Hello. I'm going to be real quick as it's just out of tremendous gratitude. I think I've been asking for that help, and I've been getting it with this whole thing. I'm in the middle of it's even intervened a few times while this is going on, a story going on with my ex and my grandson. And I'm loving what I'm getting here, and I can't wait to have the opportunity to watch the replay so that I can let this sink in even more. That everything everybody says is just landing outstandingly, amazingly. Thank you so much. Love you all.
Thank you. And the only thing I have to say to all that is yes, watch it. And in my writing this morning, I heard that the only time this work can be done is now. So yes, intend to watch this later. And yes, intend to keep working with it. And don't let any of that keep you from being with it now. Hey, William.
Well, what I'm seeing for myself lately, I've been hearing myself say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So when I look at that, and feel it, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? But really, what I had this incident with the neighbor, and I wrote an apology to her for what I thought I had maybe offended, so forth. But what I'm really saying is that I'm just projecting. There's two ways of you saying I'm sorry. It's a manipulation. I'm sorry. Don't punish me. Put me back in your good graces. Or I'm sorry because I've been punishing you. I've been punishing you for making me feel uncomfortable instead of owning it. Talk about authorship. No, I carry with me that I've done something wrong. So, and then I think, be the son, be the son, be the one. So, like with my neighbor, it's like asking her forgiveness for me having punished her. Now, that's a little difficult. And what I'm saying really is that stop projecting. She did nothing wrong. Neither did I. But tell the truth and see the love there. And just be the son for her. Be the love and so forth. So it's so freeing because really I've been under the cloud of I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No, that's just manipulation. And I see how freeing that is when I let go of that. I don't need to punish her and I don't need to punish me. Tell the truth and just own it and be loved and acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. That one word, just acceptance. There is no because. It's always now, always now. So that's what I got to say. So thanks for all these little tidbits. It's like they're not breadcrumbs. They're just delicious little morsels of now, 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 now.
It's interesting, William, because as you began to share before you continued, right away, the first time you said I am sorry, what I heard was ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And then as I continued to hear you relative to where I am, I'm recognizing that those words, I am sorry, could be a request for correction. And I love that statement. It means that I was believing fear, let love correct that in me, period. So it was interesting how I just wanted to share with you what was happening here as I was listening to you. Um, it was beautiful. It felt good. And I don't know if I've ever equated I am sorry with a request for inner correction before. So that was neat. Hey, Sandra.
Hello, everyone. Um, Much love to each of you in this beautiful season of freezing cold. And I don't know, just the beautiful season. So this has been amazing, as it always is. Thank you, Cindy, and thanks to everyone who has shared. And what's coming up for me right now is, it seems so clear to me that I have been dropped into this dualistic world. It's a very dualistic world. And we reading about non-dualistic pointing and the direct path. But yet there's something about the dualistic world that invites me to experience it in all of its duality prior to making any corrections of experience, prior to awakening to the truth, that's the wrong word. So it's like relativity, the whole Einstein's theory, everything is relative in this seemingly real world. And that's the richness of it. If I were always cold, I wouldn't know what warmth is. In fact, I wouldn't even know what cold is. Because cold can only be cold if there's something else that's not cold. I know I'm speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir here, but the reason it's coming up is because all of the richness of experience, I think Amy said it, just experience her illness. I don't need to correct anything, I don't think. The I that is experiencing the duality is the exact same I that is not experiencing it and observing it. There aren't two different beings. It's all one. So instead of the word correction, I think I would use integration. That's not even a good enough word. Awareness, that's it. Awareness that, oh, I'm experiencing it. But I have to be careful that I'm not using this correction to escape the experience. Because, well, I could escape the experience. In fact, I have done it with my mind. I can confess to that. That doesn't give me what I'm here for, though. I do want all of it now. And wow, being a mother is one of those special relationships that gives us lots of gifts, opportunities to practice, I used to call them, but now I call them gifts. And to see that the seemingly separate self is wanting things or projecting things. Honestly, if I am responsible for what I see, then I'm responsible for all of it. I can't blame some of it on the ego. I, the real I, created all of it. I think. So it's like almost the feeling of, yeah, I don't have to slice and dice the ego anymore, figure out what the ego is doing. I'm kind of done with that. I don't know what I'm saying, so I'm going to stop now. I love you all more than you can imagine, so abundantly, overwhelmingly abundantly. You're in my arms, and I love you.
I love us very much. Hey, Richard.
I love that share, Sandra. I'm in the same place, I think. What I didn't mention earlier was when you observe the dream, you do it from a point of non-judgmental awareness. In other words, you don't judge a dream as good or bad or this or that. It just is whatever it is. So you, like Amy was saying, you get to a point where you just sink yourself into the experience and love it, regardless of what it is. Whether you perceive it as pain or suffering, then you know you're in the wrong mind. You get in the right mind and you get back into the same experience, only with love and not fear or not guilt. So you never say, I'm sorry, hopefully. I mean, I've said it, we all say it at times, but you say it rather, thank you for this experience because I thought I was the separate self. I'm not the separate self. I'm the infinite love, unconditional love that I'm experiencing. I get to experience what I'm not. All these experiences are what I'm not. And I love it because I know it's not me. I can just love everything and be happy all the time. And I think that's what I'm trying to get. So it's working for me right now. So
we hung out for an hour. So I'm going to hit the stop record and just hang out until I'm not hanging out anymore. But I do want to remind us that this is like Christmas week, but that doesn't change the fact that every meeting scheduled at an open door, whoever's here will hang because this is family.
What a great meeting. I'm so with Sandra. I just love us all so much. When we come together and Cindy brings up a topic, we always rise to the occasion and embrace her topic and bring such wisdom to it. And I just so appreciate it. It never gets old.
And Spirit was doing like real-time help with Chuck as we're going through this, it seems. So it's lovely to see it happen in the moment.
Yes.
All right, let me
Yeah.
do this.